So we're going to start today our restorative practice with inversion kind of entry point. So what you'll need is a wall space and your bolster, or you can also use a couple blankets stacked up so it's the height of approximate bolster, standard bolster. Then you want to start so your sitting bones are as close to the wall as they can be. What only way you can really find that is if you're on the height that you have position next to the wall. And then you scoot back, and it doesn't need to be a crowded knee position. You don't have to make the knees packed together. You could have them kind of splayed a little bit apart. So you're more concerned about your sitting bones to the wall than all these other parts. And that's awkward enough. So roll so the legs swing up the wall. If you have other ways of getting into it, some people will get on their back and scoot up to the bolster. Some actually can do like a somersault into the bolster and then kick up to the wall. And that is always a little bit surprising how that ends up being okay, but it feels a little sudden to just swing up the wall and hit it with your leg. So I prefer this easy peasy version. So feel if your seat is getting close to the wall. If there's some distance between your seat and the wall, that is just fine. Right, so my head is on a blanket. This is key. I have it nestled so that it supports the connection of the brainstem to my head weight. So there's no pressure of my brain pushing. It's comfortable. And then I think a key support would be something on your feet that's weighted. So when I put my sandbag, or if you have a bag of rice, you want to have something closest to 10 pounds as possible. And then as you elevate the legs, and they've already experienced going upside down, you want to flow so that the musculature in the legs, everything fluctuates and flushes, not just the lymph, but that fluid retention. And it may not be as strong at this time of day. It's usually later in the day. This feels really a lot of relief, or at the end of a class. But it's nice to start so that we can kind of work through letting the hips loosen up the circulation before we do poses in the hips. So this has some positives, I think, for beginning this way. Now let the body kind of revitalize and flush here. Feel the arms moving out. They can go out into a kind of goalpost position. You can work with the arms reaching back. You could hold your elbows with your hands. You could also let your arms be low so they're down towards the wall. But relax your eyes and feel that physicality of inside moving breath at the belly. And exhale, belly shifts towards the spine. It seems rather obvious the breath moves in those directions, but once you can meditate on that, that can be your meditation. It's just simply the movement of breath. And then the pose starts taking care of you, right? We use these shapes to promote circulation in our body, not just bones, right? Muscles and those kind of external vision things we see as ourselves, but internally, the circulation through the organs. And changing the inhale to fill the lungs, and the exhalation to sweep out that CO2. So it's a constant recycling process inside. And if you can let the eyes relax. So feel a few more breaths in, legs up the wall. And we are going to purposely stay within some of the poses, some of them in a longer amount of time, so that your body can actually kind of soak up the sensation, but not so long that it would be cranky when you get out of the pose, right? When it's already kind of modified its circulation into the shape. So we'll give this a few more moments with the legs up, but let's vary the leg position. So some things I've learned over time and kind of studied the circulation when the legs are lifted is that it's a different movement into your hips when the legs are in this place versus sitting bones, like you're sitting on the sitting bones, legs in front of you. This kind of lets gravity flow, obviously different, right? So it might be a benefit, and it also might prevent you from, of course, overstretching, because you can't overdo it on this one. So when you shift your feet away from the wall, bend, but notice how the thighs, you have to kind of open your eyes for this one. You don't want a sand surprise. You open up your eyes and then you notice how the legs, obviously, if there's sand on them, they probably are proportionally a similar hinge at the knees. They're going to use that weight of sand to even out, which is a great thing to have this one bag on 2 feet, because it will help balance into the hips. These are real fundamental ways of helping ourselves find balance. So as you bend through the legs a little closer to your rib cage, and just slide the sand away and bring your feet together, soles of the feet and the knees out, and just kind of feel if your feet slide up a little bit at the wall. We're going to vary this pose 2 times today, but one is with the feet at the wall, and the thighs might not really give in to moving to the knees to the wall unless you were to press to them, right? So I want you to notice what is your natural range, not with your forced range with your hands, just what is it right now? You don't have to unmute yourself and let me know. Is it good? Is it challenging? Is it shaking? You know, it might be a little shaky. So one thing I'm trying to do is I just rest my hands wherever it's comfortable, ribs or side of my mat. But feel when your feet slide down towards the groins, and notice, well, you want to be careful not to hurt the knees, but you find your natural range of motion. Knees open, and the weight in the back probably increases, different than your tailbone. Okay, just for trial, I want you to take the right foot a little higher than the left, but the left foot slide down. You know, if we sit in cross-legged position, same thing. Okay, so what you're doing is you're trying to be in a cross-legged position with the right foot as the higher foot, and just let the legs lower down. Maybe they go all the way to their full range. This is a great way to practice Sukhasana. This is called easy pose. When you sit in cross-legged Sukhasana, very common, traditional, just seated breathing pose. When I'm on my back with the wall, supporting my feet, I really like it because now it works on my hips. And I have to be honest, this is as far as it will go. It does deepen over time. So if you have challenges with your knees, your hip flexibility, I would recommend doing home practice, even if you do 5-10 minutes. Start with legs at the wall, and then just move into these two sides, and call it a practice. So you can start reconnecting into the hip. Change the crossing. Left foot on the top, the right leg is closest to the groins, and they may slide down. You've got the wall, so it kind of holds you. If you're a little bit scared of how far they shift downwards, you can certainly slide your feet higher up and use your hands to kind of hold the balance if it's shaky. You've got other limbs to help you out. And we're going to mirror this when we come back off of the wall in a moment. So just notice if you're lowering your feet down, how the back has to supply an arch to support you. Your body keeps cooperating randomly in these poses to help you out. Good, now bring the knees center, and as we push away, you might find that you don't prefer pushing your feet and sliding back. You might prefer to roll a little to the side and then scoot back. I've got to move my blanket way back, and then I use my feet to push and then slide back, so that now my seat is away from my bolster. And how far back do you go? Okay, I want you to only go as far back. I went a little too far, so that your seat almost touches that bolster. It's like maybe just a titch away. Okay, this will be how you figure out how far away. Left foot touches the wall. You lift the foot up so that the leg is at a right angle. You'll know if it's not at that right angle if you kind of look to it, you know, and you can see your knees up over the toes. That's like, that would be this foot too far down, not good for my knee. So keep it just stepping to the wall, and then take the right foot, cross that ankle to the left knee, and then feel how the spine kind of swerves, right? The right side swerves up so the knee can move. But I want you to try to move that right knee towards the wall. So you can use a block and you can place it. So I would go flat because that just seems to be the most supportive for my leg versus pushing it with the pointy end of my block. And then just see if you can kind of palpate. You're going to move your hands on the flat block towards the wall. Yeah, well, your leg is in the way, so you can't push it at the wall. You've got body parts in the way here that you're stretching. So feel the right foot is across the left knee. And you don't want to troll your foot around. That's not the best idea for the ankle. Just keep it centered. And if your back is starting to ache a bit, then you might go without the block, or you might just lower your elbows down and specifically lengthen out through the spine. Like you're trying to work well into lengthening your back. I know the hip might feel kind of achy, a little bit tight, but give it some moments here. It's only going to improve with the sequence today. We have improvements ahead. If your head feels like you need more blanket, you can roll it up. Yeah, these are definitely archy poses for the spine. You might have to adapt with your blanket to have more lift. Or you could do that thing we did the other day with the ball underneath, huh? I know that didn't go off with everybody, but I actually like it. I'll add it every blue moon. How about that? Okay, now if the hip still feels kind of sensitive, just that's okay. We'll get to this side again. But take it to the other side, right foot to the wall. Make sure it's as high as the left foot was. Left foot crosses to right knee. Now, again, you're on your back, so what's helpful with your foot at the wall is you can feel the lines of circulation. Place the block now to the left leg, right? The left foot is crossed at the right leg. You can feel the lines of the circulation through the spine on this position. I really like it. I love wall stuff. It's just the wall gives you information right into your bones, and the circulation and definition is a little bit more apparent for your muscles. It's a little more of a workout that using the wall. Yeah, I think you start to feel a little bit more sensitive into your lines of support. Okay, now as we shift, you've had your knees moving, externally rotating, and that has its happy moments. But as you take the block up, so let's say if you weren't using a block for that, get a block between your hands, and then take the feet apart. Let's use a block then. So we'll place it so it's narrow. I was thinking about the ball, but we'll use the block. Narrow block between the knees. Squeeze into it. I know it won't respond to your squeezing, but have the muscles move inwards with the legs, and then complement that so the lower back is centered down. Okay, take a moment here. Just feel what that is like. I think everyone in this group has a ball, so we're gonna use the ball in just a moment. So notice the sensation with the leg muscles. Okay, swap the block for a ball. Okay, between and you might notice, oh, it has to move a little bit out, just a little bit, But when you keep the feet the same, the best thing about having a wall is that you can't really cheat. You know, you have your feet printed in. Maybe they'll make prints on your wall today. Okay, squeeze in into the ball so you have response from the muscles. And then bring your arms so they reach back. And I want you to just let the spine peel up off the ground just a little bit. Let's not overdo it. Just feel what is realistic for you to lift up your hips. So you're pushing into the wall. You're squeezing into the ball. It's both. And you're lifting the hips up. Okay, arms are reaching like you're grabbing a hold of something behind you, but you don't have anything you need to grab. And then as the arms are still reaching, you're going to let the spine lower down slowly. It's not very much length, is it, to get the spine down to the tailbone? Okay. Now, if you've got a blanket under your head, scoot it back a little bit, still underneath your brain, but more at the center of the brain and back, the occiput, that shelf. And now I'm going to scoot my feet a little higher up the wall, but I'm only doing that so that when I lift my hips this time, that it's a little easier to get higher up on the spine. So you'll understand that as you practice. Lift and then lower down, let your arms go with you as you lower down. Kind of see what the feeling is with your feet height at the wall. If you want to lower them, sample moving them higher. But at this point, don't squeeze the ball anymore. Just have it as a spacer between the knees. Focus on the feet pushing into the wall and that simple motion through the spine. Lifting and lowering. Great. Take it one more time. Yeah, using the rhythm of the limbs with the spine. Lifting and lowering. Okay. Now this time when we take the knee, move the knees in, we're going to take the feet together on the bolster, soles of the feet, knees out. You might need a block under each thigh. I'm just going to use one because even if my legs could kind of stay there, I'd rather have a little bit of support. So the blocks are so-so. I know they're not like perfect. Sometimes they slide out. But if you take your block and you kind of contour it to your leg, they used to make blocks that were called egg blocks. And they had a curve on their side, but they kind of went out of business because they weren't functional for more than a few poses. But what might be the best is if you have a ball, or two of these balls, and you make sure they're the same size, that you have to pump them up to the exact same size. You could use those instead of the blocks, and it would be very nice because your leg could just kind of loosen up into that ball. Yeah, it'd be like a kind of like water. You kind of soothe into it, and it floats. You float on it. Okay, take a belt. We're going to start getting familiar with our belt. And don't worry about how connected it is or anything like that, but just reach it so it's unbuckled and you have plenty of space, and stretch your hands on the belt so they're wider than shoulder width apart, and move your arms back overhead. And why not move the arms alternating this pattern so your arms move back up as if they reach to the ceiling. Inhale. And then exhale, move your arms back. Okay, see if the spine and the muscles along the spine can stay supported, right? You're not trying to push the arch of the spine at all. Just alternate the motion back, overhead. Yeah, try to keep the hands at the same width, even when you go back overhead, as when your hands go straight to the ceiling. And last time overhead, so feel where the arms motion. Now think about the arms moving, not so much the ribs or the back, but the arms, extremities reaching. Okay, so now as we maintain that reach for a few moments, everything's just in moments here. And your feet may not perfectly be pressing. They may have loosened up their definition of pushing together, and that's great. The idea is that the hips are, the inner thigh is stretching. Most of us, our adductors are really pretty boggy because there's a lot of lymph nodes in there. So it's a good, this is why these are common poses for immune system, right? Feet together, knees out, liver, kidney, spleen. Okay, so bring the arms so they're straight up towards the ceiling, and then the knees go back in center. And now as you keep your belt real close, okay, let's try this. So we'll scoot the blocks aside, keep one really close, and feet about hips distance apart, arms open, knees will swing side to side. So windshield wiper. If you hear a sound like a giant bumblebee, it's just people working outside. It's not, we're not going to have an attack of a giant bumblebee. I don't know, maybe it would happen. Okay, knees go side to side, swishing through the hips. Okay, enjoy the motion. So it massages a little bit through the bones of the pelvis into the hip, right? The piriformis. You know, these side lateral pieces at the top of the side of the leg is really where we're trying to mush into. Now you might get more benefit if you have one of the massage ball and you kind of roll on that. So you can always put one underneath the buttock and massage in that area anytime during the class, especially this part. And so you can take little breaks to do that. So I'll instruct the poses though. So what we're going to do is we're going to slide back a little bit. Now this is the one pose that I love to work with when I take classes, but it's a little tricky to educate the specifics. So let's try this. This will be a little bit of a sample distancing from the wall. So put your feet at the wall. Okay, this is not final pose anywhere near final, but okay, your knees should still bend. Now the difference of the spacing is going to be different for everyone because when you use a block under your pelvis, you straighten your legs, we're just all different. So let me show you what we're gonna get towards. Okay, I want you to get your belt and you might as well bring your knees to your chest and buckle up the leg. So I would just go center leg, upper leg, and buckle up and just to be safe. You might loosen it a little bit so it's not exactly hips distance. So you're not gonna be, you won't struggle so much to get into the shape. You can always tighten it up once you get into the final pose. So I'm gonna slide my belt, just kind of let it naturally, with gravity, be a little higher on my leg. You don't have to end with it at the buttocks, but it might end up there. So feet go to the bolster. Now, be easygoing. You're gonna lift your hips up and let's all keep it simple with this one. We're gonna use one block. Lift the hips up so you'll slide your block at the low or the middle height under the back of your pelvis. And then you'll slide your feet to push into the wall. So this is where you might be figuring it out. You might be pushing back, but I don't want you to be very far from the wall. The key is that you want to feel like you can push into the wall. It's a really cool way to do bridge pose because this hip flexor, the psoas stretch is really divine. So if I touch down to my block, I can feel it not quite perfect on the ground. And that's okay. Some people teach this with the block tilted, right? So it's literally tipped to the side. And I'm someone that seems to want everything like just the mathematical line is right. So you might have to give a little bit of that tilt and just be with it because your pelvis and your sacrum, it is tilted here. So it's actually true to your bones. So it's probably not going to be perfectly pressing. Now get a hold of the tail of your belt, and then you want to snug it up. Now some teach where this actually kind of covers the side, whatever is pushing out in your side of your upper leg. Some like to teach where they tighten that down and push it into the muscle, but I don't see the idea around that besides that it maybe looks better because I don't necessarily feel like that helps my muscle. So, I mean, then again, it feels like it's completing the package, but I don't see how that works with the bone. So you decide on your belt, but be sure that your feet are pushing into the wall. That's the most important piece here. They're on the bolster, the legs. That's cool. You don't have to work so hard. And then the arms are going to move down. Shoulders roll a little bit down and in towards the spine. And then you're kind of balancing on your shoulders a little bit. Your side of your arm into the piece of the shoulder. And the head could be on that blanket flat. And then simply experience the bridge pose. Yeah, try to push into the wall. You don't have to push so much that you're going to imprint the wall deeper than already, but spend some energy on feeling your foot, feeling the feet. And feel the opening in the front body, breathing slow. You know, we're kind of turning the class sequence upside down, aren't we? Making it the opposite that we normally experience. I think we're getting back into the bones class now, so now. Okay, so feel when you press. If the energy is large in the legs, we're missing out a little bit. So if it hurts you, you make the block lower. That's okay. It's like, oh, this really cut too much in my back. Lower the block. You can also add a second block of the same height, just next to each other. It's another way to go. Right? You can just have them lined up, you know, side to side so that you have more complete support under your back. You can play with that. And some people would stack the blocks on the low height too. They just stack them up too. And that would be under the pelvis. And so it's a higher ridge, right? And that's a little bit more stretch in the hip. But if it hurts in your back, then that's not a good idea. This doesn't hurt my back. I feel the pressure in with where the block is on my bones. I can feel that pressure, but it's just the actual sensation of the body, my body weight pushing into the block. It's my weight that makes that feel that way. Okay. Now, when we shift the feet, I want you to really push into the balls of the feet like you just want to push that wall away, push into the balls of the feet, and then carefully, I would just unbuckle so you don't have any issues with how you get out of that belt. Unbuckle, and then walk the feet up onto that bolster, knees point up. Oh, it might feel kind of nice. And then you'll push down to your feet. Now the back of the legs into the buttock muscles will kind of spring into, they kind of secure around the bones. The glutes get that tone. So really feel that tone in the glutes, because that was just moving the other direction a moment ago. You knew that with the belt, you could feel it. So push into your feet and then push the hips up and then scoot the block away. Once the spine lowers down, ease through the back. Okay. Now we'll bring the knees into the chest, both. Just go ahead right into that. Hands to the kneecaps or under the legs, if the back of the legs, if your knees are a little sensitive to that. And then circles so you massage the outer rim of the sacrum. So go both directions about 2 to 3 times. And feel where the motion is in the back of the pelvis. Just clear back of the pelvis. And then bring your feet back down to the ground. And reach your foot to the bolster and kick it over to the right side of your mat. If you've got a bunch of stuff over there, like for instance, your sandbag, you're going to want to take a moment to get that. So you need your sandbag today for this one. You need sand. All right. You can always perfect the sequence more. I know there's always something could have done, would have done, but here we are. So I've got my bolster and my foot at the wall. And now as I bring the knee in, let's try this. Let's hold the back of the left leg. So my bolster's on the right, as you know, you're preparing to use it maybe. but push the right foot into the wall at the base. If you've got a little baseboard and your heel is up on the base board, I want you to lower it down if possible to the floor. Okay, that's going to be a little better alignment for your lower back. And then just try to lift up the left and pull the leg towards your left side of your waist. See if that'll go. If you're kind of out here a little bit and it's shaking, then bend the knee and see if you can use the foot that's into the wall to help you gain that motion into the back. Yeah, it's back stretching. It's not just leg. It's the whole back sensation. Okay, now loosen up the grip with your hands. Help your left leg over to the bolster, okay? So I've got to pull my bolster up a little bit so it's across, now outside from my hip, I've got my ball. I'm gonna take my left leg over to the bolster and everything gets kind of bendy, right? My knees bend, my hip kind of scoops into that motion on the bolster. If your leg is kind of hanging out a little bit up off the bolster and it's stuck, then you'll use your other blanket, stuff it in there. If you happen to have like little pillows around, you might just bring those to your yoga prop pile, like small little square pillows. This can be helpful here as well. I have several of those. That would be a nice thing to add, I think. I'm going to bring that to class next time. Okay, so stand on the outer left leg, left arm is open. You're gonna need a whole special closet now for your yoga props. You thought it would just be a little part of your a cubicle, but now it's gonna expand. Okay, left arm is open, head rolls to the left, eyes relaxed. No big change for a few moments here. So feel where that sandbag is on the exterior left leg. Not required to use sand if it already feels enough stretch. Breathing slow. And relax the blend of breathing and then any sensations that kind of perk up in your consciousness that are holding patterns, like maybe between the knee and the foot. You know, feel what you can do in the other leg to let that area loosen up. Maybe bend the right knee a little more. Feel the left leg as it has flowed over to the bolster. And just centering our focus into our hip. And just let the leg, variety of movements on our leg, be kind of a soothing massage into our joints. So I know sometimes we go through the motions and know that it's good for us, but it's not always enjoyable. So, you know, kind of entertain that focus, especially in a practice at home, because you can vary it. You're not going to feel that influence around you as much, right? So you can move around, and if you need to wiggle your knees side to side in between poses, go for it. Really sense what's helpful for you to manage these poses. So when I take the sand away, one habit or kind of an old school pattern out of this shape would be you would move your knees back center, right? It would be reclining pigeon, like we've already done this, so I'm not going to repeat it, but that would be a normal exchange of poses after the crossover. You might go ahead and bring your knees in towards your chest, which is typical, isn't it? And then let the legs swing straight up. So flex the feet, bring the hands down so they're hovering straight down by your hips over the ground. They're not pushing the floor unless you automatically touch them down, no problem. But lift them up, lift the hands up, and then get a feel of moving your legs forward, away from your center, away from your head, the other direction. So they maybe go down to 60 degrees, maybe that's it. I'd rather have you go less than do too much and then feel your back get tighter. I'd rather you do less. Less is more sometimes with core work. Feel the arms up above the ground, okay? And then bring your arms overhead. I know the legs are still leaning a little forward, strengthening into the middle. And then bring your hands to the knees, tuck them in towards the chest. Should be kind of easy for this group, I think. It might not be too technical. Now, if the feet are flexing because they're awake for the pose, relax the feet. Okay. And then as we shift the sides, I want to keep a real clear focus. You're going to get the bolster to the left side of your mat, over there to the left. And you'll need all your props for this next path. And if you like to have that blanket on top of the bolster, this will be a good time to put that over there. But let's stretch the left foot down, push that into the wall, and then reach the back of the right leg with both hands. And pull the leg, feel the leg itself move in towards the right side of your torso. And then lengthen. Now, it doesn't need to go into straight mode, but just feel the particulars of the hamstring on the right leg. Yeah, we usually use a belt, but we're just varying it up. So variety is good for sensations in the muscles. Okay, once you're on a good foot now, you're pushing into the wall at least with your left foot. I think that's the main focus on this one, is pushing the wall. Because everything else will kind of come together, whether I have mobility or not. But the wall is really, it's honest, it's truthful, as long as your heel is on the floor. And the wall is safe, it doesn't have any nails poking out of it. And then you really got to clear your house for these practices, huh? Okay. So how do I get my leg over the bolster, right, with strength in my core? So a few moments ago, we did the leg movement forward. That was primarily for the core. So I want you to shift your right leg a little forward. Now notice if my knee is bending, your knee is bending. If you take it over to the bolster, you probably have to shift your bottom hip. So I would get a ball, okay, hold that with the right hand, and then let the left foot turn out of the wall. So that's how you guide into your leg moving to the bolster, right? So my left foot at the wall, I just turn it to the left, and then I scoot the ball into the sacrum area, and then add my sand. This is getting easier each time, huh? Okay, takes a few decades, but at some point you'll get there. Minimal few years. So sand on the exterior right leg, and then stretch the right arm open, okay? Let your head turn, and then you might feel the sensation through your neck. You might feel like there's too much support under your neck and you're overarching in that part of the spine. So you can change the blanket. You can tuck it in a little bit more under your neck. You can push it farther back. You can wad it up. I don't think you're going to add a ball under it, but that was one thing you've done. And then where the spine is turned, breathe slow. Exhale completely. And when you feel the ribs shift to the right, whether your head is turned to the right or not, what the focus is that the ribs have this mild rotation. Right? It's not excessive. We're not taking the twist to a harmful level for the vertebrae, but it's pretty intelligent work when we're on our back doing twists. This is a twist, a hip opener, a chest opener, kind of all combined. Okay, now start to loosen your push with your foot at the wall. And this time we're gonna actually keep rolling to this left side. So you're not gonna be going back into center. We're gonna move to all fours. So taking the sand away, I encourage you to, if you don't want to, that's your choice, but I want you to turn to the left and move the ball aside. And then when you roll just a little bit, you're gonna come up to table and then slide the blanket back so it's under your knees. Yes, so my knees are on the blanket. I'm gonna have to scoot it back sufficiently so it's very much padded. And then your bolster, you can just keep it over on the side. I don't think we'll use it for a little bit here. Okay, so hands, blocks to keep them nearby. We'll add them in a little bit. And then with the shoulders, just kind of stretching forwards, I want you to get a feel of a cat-cow sequence where the hands are farther forward than you used to. Usually they're right under the shoulders. I want you to have a slight stretch of the chest. It's pretty mild with the arms. And then round your back with the chin moving towards your chest. See, you get a little greater range when the hands are forward. And then the arch of the spine. Exhale. Round your back into cat. Inhale, tail moves back, chest moves forwards. Good work. And exhale, last one in this variation, chin to chest, cat. Okay, now look back at your feet. Now the wall's not perfect sometimes with a little base on it, but when you do, scoot your feet a little forward away from the wall and lift the knees up. Now, the heels are probably up. So I want you to scoot your feet forward enough so that your heels are a little bit up at the wall. Everyone needs some heel height with the wall. And the chest stretches through, right? You still have the inverted V position. You're not moving your hands to the wall. You're still pushing the floor away. Of course, these are all optional. If you need to come down on your knees and rest back into your feet, that's fine in child's pose. But notice that separation of the knees. I know it's actually great for your skin on your face, right? Your skin cells. It's a fabulous position for the heart. But if you are panicked doing it, you need to come out. Okay, now lower down the knees and stretch your feet back to the wall. Turn the hands out. Be careful of the wrist here. Turn the hands out and then stretch the hips down and forward with the heart to upward facing dog. Yeah, and make sure your feet push into the wall so you support your back seam. Okay. Now kind of visualize, remember we have that belt around our upper legs when we're on our back. That can be done in this pose too, but I don't want us to get all wound up in our belt. So push the wall away. I was gonna say push the floor away, but push the wall away behind you. And then come back to table. Send your arms forward, reaching, hips back, forehead down to the ground, and rest. Okay, your elbows can touch ground. You can lower all the way down to your elbows if you like. But your hips are up behind you, forehead down. Okay, now purposely feel your elbows kind of stretch a little forwards. Slide the hands back and grab a block under each hand. Have the hands really have a good assistance with the blocks. And take the knees, move them together. So you start with a good setup. Your feet are at the wall. And step the right foot forwards. Okay, now you lean into the lunge. So the interesting part of this compared to like the up dog when we're just moving our hips down and moving the heart up is there's just this more kind of smooth kinesthetic range because you're using your legs individually. So feel when you lunge forward with the right foot, the right knee kind of is, you can look down, it may be a little bit over the toes a bit, but have a nice stretch to the left thigh, the front of the left leg. Okay, breathe. You know, I hope the low lunge is okay for you. I know some people will say, I can't get my knee on the, I can't keep it on the blanket, it hurts too much. So if that's happening, you can lift your back knee up. You just push into your foot and lift the back knee. But if the knee can be on some padding, you're going to get a little bit more give in the quad to lengthen out the front of the leg versus tightening the leg and holding it up. So reverse lunge, just keep the knee down if you can. If you can't, you can have your knee up and still reverse lunge and stretch the toes up on the right foot and lower down your upper body to the leg. I don't know where else it's gonna go. But if you have block height change, you can lower it down. You can bring it up. Right? Some people like to actually get the blocks higher and reach them farther in front. Some like the blocks just besides the foot and tilt down the spine. Okay, the legs cannot go to sleep now, huh? Okay, now reach through the feeling, the felt sense of kind of rocking through the foot. If you can't see, it's kind of like more of a rocking back and forth through the heel and just the movement of the ankle. A little back and forth, nothing dramatic as far as the actual range, but just motion. And then make sure your blocks are at the mid height. And then see if you can get momentum. You're going to move forward into the bend of the right leg. So you're lunging again. Okay, this might take a bit of a gamble for your balance, but what you're working on is keeping that foot right where it's at. This is a far step away from the wall. Lift up the back knee. Now, if you're challenged and you try to scoot your right foot back to step forward, okay, that's fine. If you need to do that, I don't want you to fall down, so that might be better. But a nice opportunity for you might be to lift up the knee, the back of the thigh muscles a bit so you can feel the hamstring area, you know, tone a little. Bring the blocks up. And then feel if you can step forward. If you're kind of losing balance before you even step off the wall, then you need to slide your foot back just a little. But step forward so you have some momentum, a little energy to get there. And then take a forward bend. Bring your hands to your hips and tilt forward and let the weight of your head stretch your back, all the back, right? The legs, the hips, the spine. Hold the back of your legs, lower down the hands, and let the weight of the upper beam, not just head, but the spine, stretch out the back. If you like your blocks under your hands, you can put them under in front. If you like to dangle your arms or hold your elbows, take one of those choices. Two choices are too many, huh? And simply breathe. Now, feel where the weight is in your feet, right? Do you tend to have it forward at the ball of the foot? Is it sort of centered back to the heel? Okay, now notice where the weight is, and then the arms dangle. Okay, now place the hands back to your hips and just get a feel of bending your knees. We're not going to stand all the way up. I just want you to get a feel of bending the knees so the weight is back to your heels. Hands reach down to your blocks, bring them in beside your feet, and step the right foot back, but take some caution here. When you reach back, it might feel like a really long lunge, like not in timing, but big step. And you have to kind of approach that reach of the left knee forward. This actually feels good to have a lunge off of the blanket and get that circulation in the leg bones. Because we didn't do it on the other side, let's just swap sides for a moment. Step the right foot forward, the left foot back, just so we can have that buoyancy in the bones. Buoyant bones. That sounds kind of silly. Doesn't sound like a good name for a class. Okay, now let's change the side so we can get into that left leg. So step the left foot forward, the right foot back, and lower the right knee on the blanket. If I put my foot up at the wall, it's gonna hurt it. For me, it hurts my knee a lot. So I can't play that game. Some people will do those stretches where you'll scoot back and you'll put your foot up at the wall. I can't remember the name of that they used to call that pose. I don't remember. I do. It's somewhere in my mind, but I don't think it was a very, very pleasant title. So we'll skip the topic. So the right thigh stretches down. Yeah, try to peel open through the front thigh and also stems up into the psoas. Right, you can feel your waist have a little bit of stretch. It's kind of, I don't know if it's pleasant, it's intense. So try to steep into that. If you lower your blocks, it might feel interesting for your thigh, the adductor, a little bit in the inner leg. Give it a few moments, steep the leg. And then lean back. Okay, left foot toes up. Feel how the muscles maybe don't span and steep like a quad would, right? So the hamstrings are slightly different. I think just the volume, the blood flow in the back of the legs, it's different than the quad, isn't it? It's like this area kind of goes up and towards the hip flexor. Just feels a little more volatile. That may be just my sensitivity with where I'm most mobile, but some of us, the hamstring might be more, this one. So I would just let the blocks be in a comfortable spot. If it feels like you're hinging your shoulders to your ears, then you might lower them down. So you're not practicing that kind of poor, sensible motion in the upper arm. But you can move your foot a little forward and back. Just caution for hyperextending. It might feel good for your ankle, the motion. A little crackly ankle. I don't hear your ankles, but I hear mine a little bit. So get that feel of that reach. Okay, now we're going to shift. So this left leg is going to shift across. It looks like we're doing a pigeon pose, but it's pretend. Okay, so slide forward with your blocks. Okay, they're up a little bit. Scoot the right, with the left knee up, and then walk your left foot toe heel to the right side with your foot. Okay, now you come down to the knee, and then you're going to shift over to that left hip to take a seat. Okay, then take your blanket, move it behind you. Now I don't know where you're facing in your room, but we're getting in a side stage, so we're flipping it around. Find, and you might be crawling to do this. You might not be exactly like me, but have a blanket stack on the other side. Block can go overhead. So you're kind of starting to create, this is good for our brains, right? We're switching it up all over again. Now we're facing the other direction. Good for us. And then put your bolster next to your leg, the bent leg. Okay, getting a sandbag, getting a ball, those are your final ingredients here. And I would have your ball on the inside of the right leg, even if it doesn't hurt to have the knee down. If you have a ball, I would just use it because it's just good science for your hip joint to your knee. If you look at the line when someone doesn't have a ball, it turns the knee and torques the joint. I don't know if in time that's the greatest, most brilliant move. So, and I wouldn't want to have time tell me. So use a sandbag across the hip. And then you lean in. Finally, side sage pose, huh? Okay, we got there. So the block could be overhead or not. You might not use one. Some people find that the hand to the ground or opening the arm out towards the ceiling works good. Caution that the neck is comfortable. So if you feel like you want more blanket, just use it. And again, if you have one of those little pillows, You might look around for a small square pillow to add to your practice for under your head. Great, we made it to side sensation now. Okay, and let the left arm between the props just relax. Sensation of breath in the mid-body through the ribs. And keep the awareness of breathing, but also settling. And sometimes the effort of focusing on breath can be tiring. So if that's tiring, then simply relax into the props. The breath will be automatic, right? It'll happen for survival. Just that we can focus on deepening it and strengthening the lungs. So it can be an occasional experiment, not every moment. Now, the final few moments, I would take caution with the head, the neck. Be sure that that's comfortable. You need to add a little more height or less height. Check in with the right side of the neck. Now, the right arm reaching can add to those sensations, better or worse, right? So if I let my right arm open towards the ceiling, the chest opens. For me, that feels a little better on my neck on the right side. My arm goes straight over to the block. There's a mild pinch. So you just kind of notice even if it looks funny, if it feels better, I would just go with that. And it might be better for some with the arm resting on your side. Okay, now let the pose path take care of your circulation to your lungs. So if you've got sand on the ribs, slide it away. Any sand, actually slide away. Just simple moment in between sides. Lower the right arm. Just leave your block overhead if it's there. And then feel, if you can, you're sand free. So if you can roll onto your back, you might notice that our habit, I wonder if this is something we learn when we're crawling, but our habit to get onto our back, for most people, when you watch them, is they gotta lean over first, and then they have to roll into their back. If you look at like a little toddler, they'll just flop onto the back. But for some reason, I think our back gets tighter sometimes. Well, when you age, things get a little bit tense. So we tend to have to come up, and then go back down for comfort. If you had a choice, you might find rolling on your back from that last position was a little tough. So it's okay. So we take the blanket, and I have my blanket on the top, really a little extra roll. It's not flat. It's kind of tubed up. I'm just gonna go ahead and tube it up so that I have a nice support, kind of like a round support, and that may be too much roundedness for some of us. So move it around so that you've got your blanket. I guess you could put that ball in the blanket again, and that would work out nicely because it's responsive surface, even more than a blanket. I bet it's just, you can kind of move your weight of your head into that mushy surface. I know it wasn't a big popular thing the other day, but use it if it works for you. Walk the feet in, and then the knees rest together, just in together. Kind of like teepee pose, right? So the knees just rest together, the feet are apart, toes turning in, and then arms are open. Big rib stretch. It's also the lateral points, right? And you might feel like the back is scrunched in, but it is comical because the discs in the spine actually get plumper in this pose and hydrated. But I think physiologically, I feel like things squeeze in, but it's just not the truth. So you've got to find a way to get the ribs to open. If it's too much, what do? You get your head higher, because that takes that arch out of the spine. That can be a little too much pressure. So if your hips need something under them, of course, you could put a block under the pelvis. I don't think the ball would be a good idea. It's too mushy. And then specialize with the focus on breath in the mid body, not necessarily belly body, but just where it's moving comfortably. It's expanding outwards. Take a few moments. And if you're kind of on edge with this one, the knees together will help a lot. My knees are apart, it causes strain in my back. So my knees touching in. I can scoot my feet only so far out though, because my knees don't necessarily like more of that. You know, that position kids sit in when their knees are touching together, the feet are way out. That is the beginning of that, right? So I'm not going to entertain that in my bones. Okay, work with the breathing as if the breath is its own muscular kind of rebound for your ribs and your lungs. Mouth relaxes. Inhale through the nose. Exhale out of the mouth. Okay, so when we switch sides, I want you to bring your feet so that the toes face straight down, and then you'll roll to your right side to the sage pose on the other side. But use the slowness like you're trying to peel away any of that residual holding in your back. You're trying to kind of loosen it up. So right arm is between. Yeah, fuss around so you're comfy. Placing the ball to the inside of the left leg. Your props might be near set up for what you need. So you might find you can get your lower beam stuff on, like your sand. You might need to make your blanket a little bit lower. I think I'm going to try at that height and see how it works, because my neck wasn't entirely satisfied the last side. So this is feeling a little more cozy. Then the left arm reaches overhead. You can also use things like a second bolster that works here under your head versus the blankets, but the blankets are so versatile, you can change the height. That's the benefit. So feel that reach of the left arm, feel the weight of your head into the blanket, and breathe. Yeah, overly pulling a joint is not necessarily the best thing. So if you feel like the seam is getting a stretch and it's taut and a little tension, okay. But if it starts tingling and you lose sensation, it was not okay. So you just have to start to learn. We're still learning about ourselves. What works in the long range here for our focus? We still keep learning, right? This may feel good for a minute, and then you might have to change and let the left arm open. Okay, but let the gates open into the circulation for the lymph here in the chest area and the armpit chest. Yeah, this area always feels good to stretch, armpit chest. It doesn't necessarily feel easy. It may be restricting, but I like the sensation of that movement out. Okay, good news here too. So we have this left side reaching, and it might feel like it's in the front rib space. It might feel a little bit of the side slat of the waist. So we're going to try to combine it all the way around. In our final spinal pattern, we're going to do seated. So yeah, really try to stay kind of proper with your patterns in the end. Just do the best work you can. You're the one knowing if you do it, right? So when you feel that left arm come down with the sand, it's going to stay still on the left side as far as the sensation work. But I want you to roll into the right to come up and eventually sit on the bolster and take the blankets behind you. Actually, maybe your block should come up front too, but take your blankets, unravel those, the top one, make sure they're just stacked up behind you. I'm not sure if we're going to use them for something, but we'll just have them there just in case. If your bolster is kind of far back, maybe scoot it forward so you have some mat behind your blankets. Okay, just a little bit. And then let the right leg stretch out. The left knee bends so the left foot is towards the right thigh. And then add a sandbag just for the first few moments here on top of the left thigh. And be sure your seat feels like the seat is kind of squished into the bolster. It's like sitting on top of my bolster. I'm upright. Right? I have this kind of obnoxious pattern of ribs moving forward. But like we just did the side stretch, we're going to do that here. So we're going to take a block, because it's just easy with a block. Place it besides the right leg on the outside of it and the right side of it. And then reach down so that your right hand touches to the block. Maybe you can get your elbow down, but I don't think it's likely, right? Not to say we can't do it, but don't worry about it. Push the block out so you reach it besides the right side of the leg into towards the side of the foot maybe, and try to get the left arm to lift. And be a little sensitive to that. It now stretches down to the side of the waist, to the lower left lateral, right, the quadratus lumborum, this left side band. It's a nice, like it's a pretty steep stretch. Turn your head down towards the right leg. Breathing. Yeah, that feels pretty good in the side. Yeah, we can do lots of leg stretches and all those things, and we have done some today, but these areas are difficult, even if you're, just daily stretch habits. This doesn't necessarily come into play. Okay, now come back with the block, slide it in towards the bolster, left hand down. Bring the right leg just straight in front of what you know is your sitting bone. Take the sand away and cross the left leg over the right. Okay, simple, just simple. Flex the right foot. Okay, and then hook the right arm to the left leg just besides the knee and try to take a turn from the waist. So you're trying to turn. It seems like the obvious turn style is how the arm connects to the shoulder, and then the part that's closest to the leg seems to do the twist. But I want you to keep the rotation that moves out of the back of the waist, the low back of the waist. Just visualize that area turning. Right? And you might end up letting your eyes close, feeling your right foot push forward. I suppose it would be really nice if you had a wall to push into with your foot, but no requirement. Just so you really work on your spine support. You don't need to add in something like that. Okay, unwind, and then take that left foot in front that was crossed over the right leg. Reach it to the right foot, and then take a simple cross-legged position. Just like we did at the wall, we're upside down. Same thing. Feels different though, doesn't it? You don't have the same gravitational kind of drop into the hip. But now we just work with spine up and hands on bolster, or just behind the bolster, and lean forward. If you decide you want to add some sand to your left leg, that would be the place you put it. If you want to block under each leg, that feels kind of nice for me. I just kind of place it there so when I lean, I have something to lean into. You'll feel this in your left hip. If you need to modify the props, the ball, it might be good under my left knee. Yeah, that feels great. Yeah, now I just have to get the ball so that same size. And I just don't think that's going to be easy to do. So leaning forwards. Like there's always farther to go. There's always getting your head all the way down. But I don't know how your hip would feel if you did get your head down. Okay, simple-minded. Come up, Stretch the left leg out. Put a sandbag on the right thigh. Block besides the left, outside, left side of the left leg. Slide down with the block. Stretch up and over with the right arm. And you might feel, I can feel my hamstring, I can feel my waist string. You know, you might notice that reach, but it is kind of an in-between settling and rising pose. It's not like, oh, I'm relaxed. It's an energetic kind of propulsion out of the waist, isn't it? And if you could get your elbow down on the block, that would be ideal, so you're not tightening up in your arms so much. You're using gravity to help you stretch. Breathing. Almost there. Take a few more breaths here. Okay, if your neck is tight, look down to the left leg or close your eyes. Okay. And then swing that right arm back behind your waist. And you likely will come up, I'm assuming, you have momentum in your torso. And then take the sand off, bring the left leg straight in front, up from the sitting bone as you feel. Cross the right leg over the left, and then hook the left arm to that right leg and turn. Yeah, and you might get a feeling of your sitting bones, you know, kind of sliding back. So you want to be, you know, comfortable. Doesn't mean you look a certain way on your bolster, but can you truly sit upright and twist? You're likely different on your second side in mysterious ways that you're not really quite detecting, but you can feel like there's different, the organs are different side to side. So it's not going to be the exact same when you turn as far as waist movement goes. So flex to that left foot, like you imagine you're pushing your foot into a wall and you're turning the waist. And then unwind, turn forward and slide the right foot forwards here in simple cross-legged position, right foot in front of left, bent legs. And then again, you can have your block under your leg, you can have a ball, you kind of decide. And I know the idea would be that you would use your sandbag. Like a little ball here, block here. Okay, you use your sandbag. This is why probably 2 of those balls would work great on this. Lean forward. Your hands could be legs, it could be bolstered. But as you lean into that forward fold, feel where the back muscles reach out of the legs, right? So your sitting bones, and then your back is trying to move forward off of that seat to stretch your right hip. Okay, we're almost to the last pose here, so just take a few more moments here. Feel your feet relaxed. Your mid-body, your upper leg body strong. There's resistance, right? So strength. Good. Yeah, it's probably feeling like you want to go forward, the back rounds to get there. So use that touch on the bolster to help your spine. Yeah, that looks good in your back. So you can feel that the spine area is toned. It's tough not to push the head down because it is a little more weight, isn't it, than the shoulders pulling us back. Now come back up to center, and then we'll simply uncross through the legs. It probably feels good to kind of shake them out here, but the shake out will be easier when you're on your back. So slide your feet in, scoot your seat back to your blankets, and then take the bolster between and forward, and then let the feet be about as wide. I think this is easier as the knees bend, the feet down, bottom of the feet down. And I just take my bolster and tip it up on its side and lean forwards. And let the spine kind of gravitate towards that stretch. Let your head center between your arms. And feel that fulfilled circulation through the back. Just the back area, the low back. Shift back to center and take a block on each inside of the mat. So taking that height, so it's at the second setting on your block inside the mat. Walk your feet in a little towards your seat and then turn the bolster so it's across the blocks. Well, it's on top of the blocks. I don't know if it's actually across. And then as I sit down in front of my blankets, I'm going to take one of them on top of the bolster. Yeah. And then your legs go up. This works out. Okay. I like this, mixing the session up, these sequences. Good to do. Okay, now as I lower back with caution, I want my head to be supported. And if you want to add sand, I tend to find if I put my sand on my shins and then I lower down, I kind of still, that's not perfect. So you could also work with getting your sand on your rib cage. We haven't done that today at all. So, geez, somehow we almost got out of a class without that breath work. So place the sand across the ribs and let the abdomen be separate from that sandbag. And the feet are in more of a float. They're kind of a foot float. The heels float up is the key. They may still lower because gravity lowers them, but you're not pushing into the wall with your feet if you're too close to a wall. Just be aware of that. You know, feel if the sand kind of hangs off of your gripped fingers around it. You know, take a deep breath and probably your ribs will move. And then feel when your ribs are up and then let that sand center down. And then feeling how the diaphragm, everything kind of slides downwards with the breath. You can really work with sandbag breathing. That's a whole sequence of you can do over a month period of just doing some breath work with these sandbags. You haven't had received the handout, I could send it off to you. So hands are down by the sides. If you're feeling a little cool, put another blanket over you. Or call for help to get a blanket. And rest the face, rest the eyes with their little eyelid pillows over top. And return the focus internally. And it may not be like a real crisp focus, that inner lens that looks around, but it just is a movement dialogue with breathing. So connect to your breath. Let the weight of your head transition back into the blankets, the blanket. So feel the inhale for a count of 4. The belly moves, expands. Exhaling out of the mouth for a count of 5 to 6. Alternate that pace. 4 count in, 5 to 6 out. And you might eventually work with unequal ratio breathing. So it would be that 4 in and the maybe 7 to 8 out. And that could be something you practice when you're in an environment you can safely do that, even if it's standing in line. You could practice that breath and see if you can get a longer exhale. The only side effect is you might become calmer. It could be helpful in a line. All right, now let's separate the sand. Don't take the sandbag apart, but just move it off of you. And then scoot the feet up to the bolster so that you can feel the knees point towards you. And then thoughtfully move a knee in towards the chest. And just keep it mindful for your back as you hold the back of the legs with your arms. They can just kind of wrap around the back of the legs. Some of you like to maybe hold the knees. In time, that just puts some compression there in the front of the knee. So just taking the easy connective tissue route here, but hugging the legs in, rocking side to side, and then get a feel when you move your hips. You know that the bones on the legs do most of the movement here versus the hip taking over because it has the pressure on it. So let that be weight bearing for your hips here. They don't have to get real wobbly. And then just in that cannonball shape, you're going to roll to the side. Let your hands bring you up to sitting and take a blanket that was under your head and just a seat for a few seconds here. Let the thighs settle down. If this is uncomfortable for your knees, you can always slide the feet farther out or straight in front of you is fine. Okay? Let your hands merge up to them together in front of your heart. Balance the mind down to your heart center and surrender there. And let's find that collective focus of practicing together, breathing in wellness and exhaling, bowing into your heart. Namaste. Thank you. All right.